and that is wrong. I'd now like to turn it over to my colleague, Mr. Jared Polis, for any comments that he may have.
You know, I'm struck by the sharing of a number of stories, a lot of similarities, many servicemen and women over the last decade and a half since this policy has been implemented, kicked out for no good reason. What company, and I come from the business sector, could do this kind of thing? It doesn't increase your competitiveness. If you have people that you put hundreds of thousands of dollars into training, and then you don't like who they date, and so you say you're fired. You have people with excellent performance ratings, top of the category, and you're saying, sorry, we're going to put somebody who might have a lower rating in your job because, again, we don't like who you date. That's no way to run a company. It's no way to run a country. It's no way to run the best military. And what we owe to every one of our men and women who are in uniform, who put their lives at risk every day, is to make sure that we put our best foot forward militarily and do everything in our power to protect every life of every man and woman who serves. And when we remove people who would perform better, who are needed for certain functions, who have to cost more to retrain, we jeopardize the lives of other soldiers who are serving with them. This also has an effect on recruitment and retention within the military. I heard a few weeks ago from somebody who's currently serving. He was facing a decision of whether to re-enlist for another few years. He said, you know, when do you think Don't Ask, Don't Tell will end? If you think it's going to end soon, I'm going to re-up for another 5-year period. If not, I'm probably going to get out now. I didn't know what to tell him. I said, well, Representative Murphy's working on it, and I have every degree of confidence in him. I said, I hope that we will get it done in the next year or two. I think we will. If he chose to leave the military, that's our loss. That's our military's loss. The cost of replacing that individual, the cost of training somebody to get up to speed, at a time when we need more men and women to serve in uniform, is a cost to taxpayers and a cost to our national security. You know, all of these stories resound that we are engaging in an extremely short-sighted policy. How can it be argued that all of these excellent men and women with great command, great evaluations that are kicked out for no particular reason other than who they date, how can it be argued that that makes our military stronger? It simply doesn't. And we need to correct this policy to ensure that we have the very best military to defend our national interests here and abroad.
I thank the gentleman from Colorado. I know our time is almost over. But I will tell you, you know, one way to run a company, one way to run a military. But I will tell you that there are military leaders that have served our country that are adamantly opposed of discriminating and going further with the Don't Ask, Don't Tell policy. I will note one of them was the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, a 4-star general, General John Shalikishvili. He's written 2 op-eds, and he particularly wanted to point out the one where in 2007 he wrote an op-ed in the New York Times entitled Second Thoughts on Gays in the Military. He particularly points to a generational shift in the attitudes of our service members towards gays and lesbians. He writes, when I was chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, I supported the current policy because I believed that implementing a change in the rules at that time would have been too burdensome for our troops and commanders. I still believe that to have been true. The question before us now, though, is whether enough time has gone by, 16 years, to give this policy serious reconsideration. Much evidence suggests that it has. Last year, I held a number of meetings with gay soldiers and Marines, including some with combat experience in Iraq, and an openly gay senior sailor who was serving effectively as a member of a nuclear submarine crew. These conversations show me just how much the military has changed and that gays and lesbians can be accepted by their peers. I now believe that if gay men and lesbians served openly in the United States military, they would not undermine the efficiency of our armed forces. Our military has been stretched thin by our deployments in the Middle East, and we must welcome the service of any American who is willing and able to do the job. By taking a measured, prudent approach to change, political and military leaders can focus on solving the nation's most pressing problems while remaining generally open to the eventual and inevitable lifting of the ban. When that day comes, gay men and lesbians will no longer have to conceal who they are, and the military will no longer need to sacrifice those whose service it cannot afford to lose. In conclusion, Mr. Polis, I am proud that you're my battle buddy in this endeavor. Again, there's 176 of us. We're hoping to get more of our colleagues. We need 218 votes. I'll yield to you for 30 seconds and any closing comments you may have.
I would simply add, in addition to General Shekasvili, one of the original co-sponsors of the bill, former Representative Barr of Georgia, has come out in favor of repeal. The former Commander-in-Chief of the United States military, President Bill Clinton, who signed Don't Ask, Don't Tell, has come out in favor of repeal. The times have changed. And what was in our judgment at one time and a decision of military preparedness, it was might have been, good minds disagreed with whether it was in our interest back in the early 90s, has changed. The tone of the country has changed, and it is more than time. The time is long past to end this policy of discrimination within our military.
I appreciate that comments. And also, another former chairman of the Joint Chiefs, General Colin Powell, has actually came out and said it's now time to reevaluate it. So in conclusion, to the men and women, and Mr. Speaker, to the men and women at home, across our country and overseas in places like Iraq and Afghanistan, now is the time to act with a sense of urgency to repeal Don't Ask, Don't Tell. It is vital to our national security. No longer can we afford to let go of 13,000 qualified and honorable troops. We must do right by our taxpayer. It makes no sense that we spend $1.3 billion to train these heroes up and then just to kick them out just because of their sexual orientation. And lastly, this policy is simply un-American. It goes against the very fabric which makes our country great, that we're all created equal. I yield back the balance of my time.